Investing in real estate is just like investing in the market. It is slow and steady compounding over time. Anyone who says, you'll get 35% or 27%, like keep your money to yourself and walk away from those people.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Hey there and welcome to another episode of the No Labels, No Limits podcast, a show that believes in every individual's potential to achieve great things. Our guest today, Caytie Langford, embodies this spirit through her work in empowering women in the realm of real estate investing and as a motivational speaker, a passionate advocate for women's empowerment, and all the other things she's got going. With over 2 decades of experience, Caytie has been pivotal in helping women navigate the complexities of financial investments and real estate. And her journey is a testament to resilience in itself and transformation, and actually the pursuit of personal and financial freedom, which I know is something I know when I'm coaching or working with folks, they always talk about that, but Caytie kind of has embodied that. So I'm going to ask her to share a bit about her journey, about the significant impact some of the changes she made in her life had on her well-being and her, let's just say her life. And then I'm going to ask her to talk about Trailblazers and how her program addresses some things that we as women might encounter when it comes to investments and resilience. So all of that fits right in with our theme and our goal for today. And let's formally welcome Caytie Langford to the No Labels, No Limits podcast. Hi, Caytie.
Hi, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
I'm glad to have you here. It was fun in our little pre-chat, just catching up on some things and talked about some heavy things and some not so heavy things. But I think what I wanted to start off by asking is if you could share a bit about your own journey into real estate investment and why specifically you were inspired to focus on empowering women in this field.
Sure. So I like to say that I am the accidental real estate investor. I had a very much traditional upbringing. I went to high school. I knew that I was going to college. I had a check the box kind of life, if you will. I graduated from college on Saturday. I had a new job that I started on Monday. I worked for a couple years. I got promoted. I got married. I did all of the things, right? I did it in order, the way I thought was supposed to be done. And along the way, I found myself sitting in some opportunities that I was like, I don't really know if this is it. But let me just share a little bit about my background because it is an interesting thing. First of all, I'm not a finance guru. I don't have a finance degree. I don't have an MBA. If you had told me 3, 5, 10 years ago that I'd be talking to women specifically about their investing, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. You don't know who you're talking to. I actually started my career in nonprofit fundraising and had the opportunity to work with some of the brightest and best here in Dallas. I moved up the ladder very, very quickly. By the time I was 34 years old, I was an executive with a C-suite title. I had a corner office, and I was in rooms with these amazing, powerful women. And when you're young and impressionable and you get to work with women who, had been in the workforce for 2, 3 decades, who took me under their wings and said, let's do this. It was I was pinch me moments, really, to be honest with you. And I worked mostly back then for women and girl organizations, or I worked specifically with women donors. And most of these women were giving major gifts. So $10,000 plus annual gifts. This is back in 07, 08, 09, $10,000, probably around 25-ish now. I worked with women who would give 6 and 7 figure gifts. And I really thought I was just going to change the world by working in nonprofits. And yet, because I was around these powerful women, and I'm 29, 30, 31 years old, and I'm getting to have lunch and dinner, and I'm invited to holiday parties of key corporate executives, like the top women at AT&T and ExxonMobil, and these powerful female partners at Ernst and Young and, global law firms. And it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But I had a lot of women who were in my ear who were like, you can do anything. Like, you literally can do anything you set your mind to. And of course, my mother had always said that to me. She had me when she was 17 years old. I mean, in terms of the statistics, like, I'm not supposed to be where I am. I'm not. Um, I went to an all girls school in high school. So girls and women kind of were always around me. And 10 years ago, coming up this year here in 2025, I left that fundraising career and I went into executive coaching. And I know coaching, and it was a phenomenal experience getting to coach mostly women in their career pivots. So helping them get promoted, switching. People wanted to know how I had done it, right?
Yep.
Few years ago, I was burnt out. I had coached 300 individual women. And I said, okay, what am I going to do? Well, in 2010, my husband and I bought our first rental property. Now, let me just clarify. It was our 5th wedding anniversary. He was an entrepreneur, never took vacation. Like, we might go on a 4-day weekend and he would take 2 business days. Our 5th anniversary was coming up, and I said, I want to go on this 7-day cruise. I want to go on this trip. And he said, I want to buy this rental property. And I made a deal with him that if I let him buy the rental property, he would take a week off. So he said, sure. And that is how I became a real estate investor. And for years, it was just passive. And in 2023, my executive coaching, my old business that I was building, my partner and I were going in different directions. And so he had sold his business in 2022. At the end of 2022, had started getting into real estate more full time. And he said, come hang out with me. And he really thought and said, come raise money for me. Because most people don't know this, but in real estate investing, there's a lot of capital raising to buy properties. And he said, you know how to do this. You know how to raise money. Come do this. And then we'll build this great portfolio. And I said, okay, great. And I thought, well, sure, I'll do that. And of course, the 7 in me who was, in good times, I lean towards a 5. I get really strategic. I started understanding women and real estate and the numbers, and that only 31.6% of real estate investors are women. All of a sudden, I had gone from spending 20 years in rooms full of women to I'm on webinars and Zoom meetings, and it's dudes in hoodies. And I'm like, where are the women? What is happening? And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to just start this like Monday night call. No big deal. I'm going to start this Monday night call for other women, and we're just going to get together. And that started with 14 women in July of 2023. And as of now, the beginning of 2025, we have 1,200 women in that group. And what I've realized over the last few years since I dug into it, so technically I've been an investor since 2010, but really it's been the last couple of years, is that we as women have big, bold things to do in this world. You talk about it all the time. No limits. And in the nonprofit world, I thought, okay, if I can change policy, if I can put more money into philanthropy, I can make it happen. When I was coaching, I thought, okay, if I can help women make more money, get better seats at the table within their companies, their corporations, great. That's the way it's going to be. And as I have expanded, what I've realized is that if we're really going to make some of the dents that we need to make in the world, we got to have a lot of money, because money does buy better seats at better tables. It buys influence. It buys power. It brings us confidence. And not only that, Sarah, but one of the things that many people do not realize and do not know is that $30 trillion is going to be flowing to women as baby boomers pass on over the next 10 years. Right now, we control $14 trillion in the US in terms of spending, women do. We are going to more than double that in a period of less than a decade. And wealth is either going to be conserved and grown, or it's going to be lost. And the truth is, people aren't teaching women how to invest in alternative assets like real estate. We've been taught a little bit about savings and budgets, and of course, there's amazing companies that are doing that and have stepped into that. But it's time to go to the next level. So that is just a super long story of how I got here and why I care about this. And basically, the reality of why I care about this is because I know that every single woman has something big and bold that she's supposed to do in her life, whether it is sending her kids to the school that she wants them to be at, starting the business she's always wanted, helping a family member, traveling the world to experience, like whatever that is for her, it costs money. It costs
Right.
money, and so we've got to help them.
And the ability to invest, and whether it's in real estate or in people, right? To, like yourself, women want to do something. Someone asked me how our holidays were like, and what did you get for Christmas? Well, I'm past the stage of getting or wanting anything, right? Because then it's a whole thing like, okay, I got to downsize. So, but I'm talking to this gal, and I said the coolest thing was one of our grandkids was going to defer going to this tech school that he wanted to go to, and didn't reach out to ask for any help, right? He said, I'll just put it off. Well, you know, when you're a certain age and that you put it off, sometimes it just keeps getting put off.
Sure.
You know, anyway, my husband says, he tells his daughter, what's up with that? The first call should have been to us. We joke we're the grandpa bank, you know, we'll help you finance things or just, and education is a big priority for us.
Yes.
We were able to help this young person. They're so stoked, but had we not been in a financial position to do it, what we could have said was, wow, we're giving you all our best. We're right behind you. And maybe there would have been another solution, but it wasn't going to come from his mom at this point, right? Because they don't have those assets yet. But I also think that having that, for us, that's a big thing to have, and also to have the ability to donate and stuff, whatever you want to do with it, but you have something to do it with.
Absolutely. Well, I just have to I'm getting emotional here. My grandparents put me through school, and they sent me, my mom was young and wasn't able, couldn't afford it. She just couldn't. My little brother that's 15 years younger, they didn't have to help as much. But for me, you know, they sent me to college, and I was able to walk through the doors that I did because of the bank of grandma and grandpa. And so, you know, those are the kind of life-changing things that it's not just about what a woman and a family wants to do for herself. It's how can you make really this ripple effect of change in another human's lives or in multiple humans' lives. So I love that, Sarah. It touches me very much.
I'm telling you that not to sound great, but
no,
as I'm relating this to my friend, I realized I thought that really was the highlight of our Christmas season.
right?
Honestly, the highlight, because the rest of it's nice, but it's like that's a life-changing pivot right there for this young person. And
it is
how great we were in a position to be able to do that, because there were years where we were
right.
So.
Well, and even that, Sarah, so one of the things that I get a little wonky about is around data. And we know that the World Bank tells us that when a woman controls a dollar, she uses it differently than when a man does. So if a woman controls a dollar, she puts 90 cents back into her family and community. So we're talking about kids, grandkids, philanthropy, spending money within her community, like small businesses, those kinds of things. Conversely, when a man does, it's only 30 to 40 cents. So another reason is that we just, women have big things to do in their families and communities, you know?
We certainly do. So I would like to talk a little bit about the type of investing you do, because it's a little bit different. When I hear real estate investing, I'm looking at, we live in a growth area, right? Because they think it's cheaper. It is no longer cheaper. So if you're thinking it is, it's not. But so when I hear this investing, I have this vision of just huge tract homes or big malls and stuff. So your investing is different. So talk to me about you. Talk to all of us about your investing.
Absolutely. So our investment firm is a woman-owned and woman-led firm called Selene Brighthouse. And we're investing in something that they've never heard of. When I say the word, they're like, what? And then I tell them what it is. And they're like, oh, of course. We invest in what's called unanchored strip centers. So it's retail. Most people hear, oh, retail, and they're like, oh, you can't. No, we invest in the smaller strip centers that are around the corner from your house. We're talking about the place that has the little mom and pop restaurant, your nail salon, maybe your hair salon. It may have a tax preparer, maybe where your dentist is. It's in a strip. There's typically 6 to 10 doors. And what's different about it is it's not, when people think retail, especially if you're in a big city, you think of what is referred to as a power center. So where your Target is, your Home Depot, maybe your big anchor grocery stores, they're big giant companies, right? So if they close one in your neighborhood, they don't care. What we're talking about is the smaller ones who are locally owned, mostly family owned, many of whom are women owned because they own these kinds of small businesses. And they are typically things that you're still going to need and you can't do on the internet. Your dry cleaner, you got to go to your dry cleaner. You might be able to have somebody pick it up. But like your nail salon, you can't do that over there.
No, you can't send your fingers.
You can't. If you're gonna get some tacos from the great little Mexican food place, it's you might be able to order online, but they have to have a place that they can go and pick it up. And so that is what we invest in, which is not something that a lot of investors are investing in. It's not something that institutional investors have invested in. In fact, the first REIT that has ever invested in this just opened in October of 2024. But our whole premise is that we want to build an ecosystem. So most of our investors are primarily women. We want to help women understand how to invest, how to look at investments, what questions to ask. Then we invest in these smaller community strip centers, because it's where you and I are going every week, every day. We might stop by a couple of times a week. And the people who own these places and the people who work are also your neighbors. And so it's just an ecosystem of how can we improve the community.
So when you're talking about real estate, I mean, we started talking about who you were rubbing elbows with in the nonprofit world, right?
Yeah.
And they're like the big of the big. But that is not who you're talking about here. You're talking about everyday people who own the businesses. Are you also talking about everyday people who are investing, or do they need to be the big of the bigs to put money into investing? Talk to me a little bit about
So I will say this. Investing takes money, right? To be an investor who has money that can then make money, it takes money. With that said, the way that we are registered with the SEC, we have people who can be high net worth. So those people who have $1 million of net worth, There's a lot of people who just turned it down, hit pause. They're like, that's not me. But then we can also have people who are unaccredited investors. Here's the thing. We have two sides to our business. One, we have an investment opportunity that for the right people, when you know how to understand it, when you know how to do the due diligence, is right for some people to invest in. The other arm that I am most passionate about is our education arm. As we talked about a minute ago, this $30 trillion that's passing, people who I've talked to have said, oh, I don't have any money. Oh, my parents don't have any money. Okay, well, did your parents buy a house 30 years ago that has grown in equity? Because that might be where some of that money comes from. Based on the data, inheritances are going to be about $230,000. So it's not going to put you in a millionaire category, but for many people, that can be life-changing money. And so we have programs and education around how to be an investor. And when we say investor, specifically in real estate, what we mean is you take money that you've either earned or acquired or inherited, you put it into a project and it makes money without you working. There's a lot of people out there who are calling themselves real estate investors where they have created jobs inside of real estate. So like fix and flippers. My husband fix and flips. We own, my husband owns midterm rentals, part of his business that he runs. Those are real estate investments because we own the properties, but he has a job, right? He's created work for himself or his team. And so that is an active investment. It is not a passive investment. What we want to help women understand is that they can have the opportunities to invest in passive investments.
So this
Is
makes
that helpful?
It's super helpful, but just opens other questions for me because you talk about the transfer of wealth between generations, right? And I of course think of taxes.
Sure.
So if you set up an investment portfolio, let's just call it that briefly, with your group as an example on the passive side, could you do that on behalf of one of your heirs so that then it's already in existence, or is this way too taxy for you to talk about?
So I will say this, I am not an advisor, I am not an attorney, and I'm not a tax CPA. However, if you do not know the words revocable living trust, I would implore you to Google it, spend a little time on YouTube University to understand what it is, and understand why all of the wealthy use revocable living trust, and why those of us who aren't super wealthy, who aren't at that stage, but are acquiring money, need to understand what it is, especially when we talk about property and taxes. So there are people, again, not an attorney. However, there are LLCs you can set up, and then the LLC can invest in real estate investing. And so that has different implications than just your house in your personal name passing from you to your spouse or your children.
Got it. That was a good disclaimer on that.
Well, you should meet my head of investments here at Selene Brighthouse. He's the only guy on our team. He's smarter than anything. I mean, he's a whip, but he'll just send me notes like, Caytie, can't say that. Caytie, don't say that. Caytie, no. Caytie, that's not how it's said. So if Cameron is going to listen to this, which I know he will, I just want him to be like, wow, Caytie, okay, you didn't even do anything wrong this time.
But I was trying to make her do it, Cameron. So
that's okay.
No, one of the things I listened to an advisor, a real advisor, talked about, like, sometimes it's better to transfer stuff while you're living to the people just because of the tax implications of it, right? So like 10 grand now is going to help because at the point at which you die, if you live long enough, your children will be through those stages that were so difficult for them where they actually could have benefited. So that was part of what drove my question, even though I know the real estate, that what you're investing in is a little different. But for folks who aren't in that qualified or the bigger class, can you put like what would be a minimum level investment that someone might, because they might want to aspire to, I want to get to that place. What net worth or where do I have to be for at least a minimum, get my toe in the door and get going investment?
Yeah, so for our investment, I can't actually talk about that just because of how we're set up. And the SEC will call me and be like, you can't say that. So let's not talk about Selene Brighthouse. Let's talk about other opportunities.
Another one.
Yeah. No. So, for example, my husband and I, when we owned our old businesses, we didn't have time to fix and flip, but we knew a contractor that was. We were able to loan him $30,000. He was able to do a project. We got paid. Now, of course, again, I would just tell you, you need to make sure that you have the right documents in place, right legal documents, like get everything in writing. There are specific ways that you can do it. But for anybody who's listening who says, I have a little bit or a lot of bit, and I don't know what a little bit or a lot of bit is to anyone, Google private money lending. And this is the same with, entrepreneurs who are building businesses. It might be what we call our friends and family raise, right? So let's say we're starting a coaching business, we're starting a hair salon, we're starting a tech business. Oftentimes we do a friends and family raise. Again, always want documents. If I can stress nothing else, I'm saying get things in legal writing because people lose money every day with scams. So we've got to get things in writing. But there are people in the real estate space who are doing projects that need $10,000 to close, and then you can make a little bit of money on that. So investing in real estate is just like investing in the market. It is slow and steady compounding over time. Anyone who says, you'll get 35% or 27%, like keep your money to yourself and walk away from those people because there are a lot of scams out there. I'd rather tell you, at this point, you'd rather just, be in a 4.5% high yield savings account than have somebody run off with your money.
Absolutely. So, I'm curious when you're looking at your investments and you're looking at the economic conditions and the year ahead, 2025, which our toes are already over the line into 2025.
For real.
It's crazy. But what do you foresee in your own investment market and like the type of investment you're doing?
Yeah. So what we are seeing is these investments have what's called commercial real estate has what's called a cap rate. And it's the rate in which your money can make money. The cap rate right now is at a really good place next to the interest rate. So even though we're seeing higher interest rates, our cap rates are at historic numbers that we haven't seen in about a decade. The other thing that we're seeing specifically in unanchored strip centers, we buy in two markets. We buy in Dallas-Fort Worth and we buy in Southern California. And the reason why we buy in those two markets is because of our long-term goals, right? We want to buy multiple. We want to roll it up into a portfolio, potentially sell it at one point. Those are two markets that other bigger investors invest in. They're people are continuing to live there, build there, etc. Now, what we are seeing is that the cost of building is almost 2 times higher than what we can buy these places for. So to build a new strip center is anywhere from $400 to $500 a square foot, and we can buy them from $150 to $200 a square foot. Now, I say all of this with the caveat, specifically in Southern California, that we have no idea what these fires are about to do to construction in Southern California. And anyone who says that they know, it's all speculation right now. So does that mean that we might switch and only buy in Dallas-Fort Worth over the next year or two? I don't know. It's something that we obviously are going to continue to look at. Real estate is one of those things, just like the market, it's all speculation. So if somebody says, I know for a fact this is happening, they don't. This time last year, there were realtors who were like, I know for a fact that the Fed is going to drop interest rates in March. Well, they didn't. And they didn't know that. And so, there are very educated people who can make educated guesses, but they're still guesses.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. I mean, all this devastation in Southern California, the tragedy of it all. And then I thought, okay, but if you want to rebuild, you're going to be standing in line. And then you've got the insurance thing. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of unknowns, like you're saying, and tons of things that are yet to unfold.
Yeah. And, we're just days away from this, and just knowing that I was watching the news this morning, and this woman was saying that her toddler, her 4-year-old, kept saying, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And she's like, we don't have a home. It doesn't exist. That's a heartbreaking reality for tens of thousands of people right now.
Yeah. And I think the trauma of it's going to be rippling for quite a bit.
Absolutely, it is.
So beyond the physicality of what was lost, there's a whole bunch of other things that were lost, memories and places and lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have your initiative, Trailblazers, right? Women in Real Estate. Is that your group that you're talking about, or can you talk about more of it?
Yeah. So Trailblazers is the group that I started when I was like, where are the women? As you know, and as I'm sure many of your audience knows, entrepreneurship is hard and it is lonely. Lonely. When I first became a coach, I was like, what am I doing? I mean, I was used to being an executive. I had big teams. I joke. I was 22 and I had an assistant. Like, that was my real life. And I went from leading big teams, having colleagues. I worked for organizations that were either national or international organizations where I had peers across the country and the globe, or I worked in organizations where we had some kind of other network. So here I went, and I was like, this is terrible. I am by myself. And the entrepreneur roller coaster, if you haven't been on it, you don't get it. I'm married to an entrepreneur. I've been married to him for almost 20 years now. He owned a business for 20 years, bought and sold it, or excuse me, started it, scaled it, and sold it. And I did not know what it was like until I started a business. And I remember he came home one day and I said, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. And so Trailblazers is where I get to support women who are in real estate, who are building either jobs or businesses for themselves. So think of Selene Brighthouse as the place where once you have acquired and amassed money and you want to take that money and make it into a passive investment, that's what that's for. And then where I support women who are building real estate businesses is within Trailblazers. And it's because I don't want them to feel unsupported. Real estate, for the most part, it's male dominated. Not all of the spaces that are real estate investing focused are safe for women. They certainly aren't supporting of women, not all of them. I'm not saying that they're all terrible, but I've been in rooms where I wasn't welcome, where nobody wanted to hear what I've been in rooms where I've been told, just become a transaction coordinator, which is the operations administrative side of it, which is fantastic. We need those people. I love my ops people, but that's not what I was building. And so, what we like to say about Trailblazers is it's not the place where you're going to learn about real estate. It's going to be the place that you're going to learn about how to build your business. It's going to be the place where you're supported. It's going to be the place that when your friend who doesn't get what you're doing, when your mom, when your sister, when your uncle calls you crazy at Thanksgiving, it's going to be the place that every Monday night you can come to and we're like, you got this. Keep going. Okay, what do you need help with? Oh, I had this challenge. Let me help you solve that problem. That's what we are.
We all need those rooms to be into.
Yeah, we do. We do.
And it sounds like when you have those built in, like you're describing, when you're part of an organization, you don't recognize it. And then when it's not there, you think, okay, now I've got to build that for myself.
Right.
Find it or build it or whatever. So I think what you're doing is amazing in that, just in that holding a safe space, or someone who's building a business, an entrepreneur can say, this is my struggle without feeling at risk. Because, you think about being in the nonprofit world, there were things you wouldn't mention, you didn't know how to do because it would make your organization look like, oh, they don't have it together, so there might not be a good donor investment, right? This is the same, but at an individual level.
Yes. I mean, Sarah, it's like you're living in my brain. That's absolutely right. And sometimes you just need someone to be like, yeah, this is hard. Like, this is hard, because I think sometimes people get into entrepreneurship, depending on where they come from or what their background is. And they think, oh, I'm motivated and I can do this and I have this idea. And, and, and sometimes we just need to acknowledge, like, no, this is really hard. And the reason why more people aren't doing it, or the reason why people have quit, is because it is hard. Yeah. So acknowledge it's hard, take a minute to soak that in, but what's the next step? If the next step is rest, great, let's rest. If the next step is action, great, let's take action. Is it pivoting? Great. But it's not wallowing. And I feel like when I was a solopreneur by myself, I could wiggle and wobble, and I was like the Weeble Wobbles. Unfortunately, though, I did fall down, and it's hard to get back up. And so, for me, people have asked me, Sarah, like, why women? I don't get it. Like, or they think it's some fad, or they think, oh, well, you're in this space because, because all this money is coming to women. There are some people who are just like animal people. They're like, when they get in the car with you and they see like the turtle in the road, they're like, we gotta stop. And you gotta rescue the turtle, or you gotta rescue the dog. And they don't really know how to articulate it. Or the women who are like, I just know I'm supposed to be a mom. Like, I know that this is in me. That's how I am with women. Like, I can't explain it. I just know that I was put on the planet, and I was given the gifts that I was given, because I am supposed to support women to help them get where they're going.
Here's one of my best things I've learned over time is I don't have to know why. I have to trust it. Like, if I feel it deeply, I have to just trust it. And I don't have to explain it to everybody. So then my goal is...
Stealing that, Sarah.
Say what?
I'm stealing that. That is lady. I mean, I've had to say no to a few things recently, and I've set boundaries, and it's given me, but yeah, I don't have to say why. I just have to trust it.
I was starting to send someone a text about something, and it was like, my wording was important because the only way I could communicate was through text. So I showed it to my husband, and he goes, that first sentence is perfect. And I go, what's wrong with the rest of it? He goes, it's not necessary. And I go, well, why? And he said, because you don't owe anybody an explanation. I says, dang it, I know that in business. But he goes, after the first sentence, delete the rest and send it. Yeah. And I thought it was such a good reminder. It's like, you've got the information you requested. The answer is no, thank you. And let's go on. But I also know that's true for other folks. So, the pandemic, and I'm talking with women who are leading these organizations, and now they have more time. So they get up early in the morning because they don't have to commute, and they're on Zoom. And I said, and I can look, when people haven't eaten, you've got this look like little spacey.
Oh, yeah.
They're dehydrated. I get that way. And I said, did you have breakfast? It's like, is it my business to ask? I will ask things that might be inappropriate. And
women are different. Women coaches are different. Like, No, you absolutely. One of my favorite stories, I don't know if you've ever had this, but I was an executive coach. I was coaching a very high performer within the wealth management division of Bank of America. And she was the number two person in the Dallas market. Such a badass, such a go-getter. And we're on the phone and she has four kids. And I said, okay, you have this big meeting tomorrow. Let's strategize. Let's get ready. And she said, you know what's really on my mind is that it was March. She said, summer is approaching very quickly, and I don't know where my kids are going this summer camp. And I said, okay. And I said, would it be helpful if we took this hour of your executive coaching and instead of worried about your meeting, we figured that out? And she said, yes. She goes, because if that wasn't on my plate, my mind would be freed up. I know how to crush my meetings more. And that's what we did. And that is why women we're just different. We are just different.
Well, and I think you know the things that can slow someone down because you experience them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why I love the space that you're in, because it's a little foreign for a lot of folks. It would be foreign for me to be in the room with you. It would be fun to be in the room with you, but it would be new. Let me say new.
Yeah.
And as a 5, I would thrive because I would have to learn stuff.
Yes.
So, but I just love that. So you do have something that you offer to our listeners. Can you share
Yes.
about that, Caytie?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I know just in all of my work over the last 20 years is that a lack of confidence is what stops us. And what I want to make sure is that we give tools to help you with that. So actually have two different tools that I'm combining together for your audience. And the first of them is what I call my confidence resume. And if anybody's listened to my TEDx talk, this is when I referred to it back then as my badass list of stuff I've accomplished. But as I was going in and selling, speaking and things to people like Ernst and Young, they were like, can we call it something different? So we call it the confidence resume, but it's a series of questions that you ask yourself to re-engage your memories, your thoughts, your past with when are the times that you've built your confidence? What are those things you've overcome? When have you come up against something that was hard and you did it anyway? When are the times that you've crushed it? You've just knocked it out of the park. And what we do is I've combined this with specifically things around confidence in investing because this money is coming, the big banks are freaking out. And the reason you touched on a minute ago is that financial advisors. So all these big institutions that have all of this money under their management, um, within 12 to 24 months of a woman either losing her husband, divorcing her husband, etc. If there's something where the husband is no longer in the picture, she changes her investment advisor 90% of the time within 12 to 24 months of that. So all these banks are freaking out because they're like, oh my God, we're going to lose $30 trillion. What we found based on their research, because they're so interested in keeping these women, is that a lack of confidence stops them with investing. So I also have a worksheet and a worksheet and an exercise to specifically help you once you uncover some of your confidence, your past confidence moments and experiences, is to then say, okay, what does my confidence need to look like for me to become an investor? What are the kinds of questions that I need to know? Where are the gaps in knowledge and information that I might need to find? So those are the things that I've put together. And really what we want to help women do is find that confidence because we have been doing hard things our whole life. We get busy. We move to the next thing. And so our confidence falls over into the corner, starts gathering dust and cobwebs. What we want to do is bring it right out front and center so we can see it as often
And throw
as
a
we
party
can.
for it.
That's right.
Welcome that
That is right.
confidence back. Yeah. Okay, so where do people get this?
Sure. So you go to selenebrighthouse.com/Caytie, which is spelled uniquely. It is Caytie. If you go to selenebrighthouse.com/Caytie, you can download that.
Sweet. We'll make sure that that is in the show notes for you if you're listening to this and you cannot write it down at the moment. So, Caytie, with that, I'm going to leave you with the last word to our podcast before we go out. So what is something you want every listener of this episode to take away?
Yeah. So here's what I want you to know, lady. You're worth it. I truly believe with every fiber of my being that because there is only one you, that the one and only you is destined for greatness. And if you can believe that, and if you need to steal my belief in you, do it. Because there is something in this world that you are supposed to create, build, put into it, model, experience, and the world is not going to have it if you don't. So borrow my belief and just keep going.
Okay, listeners, you heard it from Caytie. Check out the show notes, get access to the gift she's given you, plus all of her other contact information, and we'll be back next week.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.